This is Top Accolade African News Updates. I am Soy Bifa Jagrich. A Kenyan mountaineer who went missing near the summit of Mount Everest has been found dead. 40-year-old Joshua Cheruiyot Kirui and his Nepali guide Nawang Sherpa, 44, disappeared on Wednesday while attempting to summit Everest without supplementary oxygen. The guide is yet to be found by the search team that had been deployed to locate the pair, a local tourism official said. Climbing Everest, the world's highest peak, is considered extremely difficult and risky, even for experienced climbers. Contact with the duo was lost shortly after the message, base camp officials told the paper. Last week, Kirui said he had undergone extensive physical preparations ahead of the challenge, with his descent planned for Wednesday. In his latest Instagram post, Mr. Kirui had expressed confidence that he could conquer Everest without additional oxygen. He, however, said he had emergency oxygen support from Mr. Sherpa and an emergency evacuation cover in case he ran into difficulties. He was a banker with one of Kenya's biggest leaders. News of the death has hit the Kenyan mountain climbing community hard. Former South African President Jacob Zuma has launched a scathing attack on some of the country's top judges after he was barred from running for parliament on Monday. In his first interview since the ban, Mr. Zuma said the Constitutional Court was wrong to decide he was unfit to run based on his 2021 conviction for attempt of court. I expected that from our judges, but they are definitely wrong, not correct, the 82-year-old said, adding that the constitution should be changed. Ahead of next week's general election, Mr. Zuma had been campaigning under the banner of the newly formed Umkhonto's Wisizwe MK party. He joined the party after falling out with the governing African National Congress (ANC), which he used to lead. The Electoral Commission argued that the constitution bars anyone who was sentenced to more than 12 months in prison from serving as a lawmaker, a view backed by the Constitutional Court judges. Mr. Zuma was convicted in 2021 for refusing to testify at an inquiry investigation corruption during his presidency. His lawyers has insisted he was entitled to become an MP as his sentence was reduced to 3 months after current President Cyril Ramaphosa released him from prison in what was widely seen as an attempt to placate the former president's angry supporters. At least 7 university students have died after apparently inhaling fumes from a generator in a music studio in Nigeria's oil-rich Bayelsa state. The young men are said to have worked late into Monday night and fell asleep in the locked studio with the generator still running. They are suspected to have suffocated from carbon monoxide emissions from police say investigations are ongoing. Many businesses and households in Nigeria rely on diesel or petrol-powered generators because of inadequate power supply. 6 bodies were discovered on Tuesday morning, while one of them, who was found unconscious, was rushed to a nearby hospital but later died. Local media reported. Residents of the area raised the alarm when they peeked through the window of the studio and saw the bodies sprawled on the floor. Police arrived and cordoned off the area after moving out the bodies in the Amarata area of Yenagoa, the Bayelsa state capital. The victims were undergraduates from the state-owned Niger Delta University (NDU) in Amasoma who were involved in the music recording business to support their education. This is not the first time generator fumes have killed people in Nigeria, Africa's top oil producer. In 2009, at least 13 family members, including 4 children, died after inhaling noxious fumes from their power generator while they slept in a remote village in southeastern Imo State. Nigerians rely on backup generators to cover about 40% of their electricity needs, according to a recent report by the International Energy Agency (IEA). Grid power supplies are often erratic in Nigeria, despite its role as a major oil and gas producer. President Bola Tinubu recently ordered all government agencies to purchase only vehicles and generators powered by natural gas as part of the country's efforts to transition to cleaner energy and cut high fuel costs. This is an opportunity for President Joe Biden to demonstrate commitment to Africa at a time when Washington appears to be playing cash up in its engagement with the continent. But relations with other African allies are under strain as strategic rivals, including Russia and China, challenge traditional areas of Western influence. At one time, Mr. Ruto would have been an unlikely candidate to be feted at the White House, with the pomp and ceremony granted to only a handful of close allies a year. The International Criminal Court charged him with crimes against humanity related to the violence that followed Kenya's 2007 election, but the case collapsed and Mr. Ruto has since reinvented himself as an indispensable partner to the US. Lingering suspicions about his democratic credentials are not the reason that Congress decided against inviting him to address a joint section, says the US ambassador to Kenya, Meg Whitman. As far as she knows, it is a scheduling issue. Under Mr. Ruto, Kenya has developed its role as the region's diplomatic and business center and anchor state for the US in a tough neighborhood. Although domestically he has faced protests over his handling of the smuggling economy, globally he has become an advocate for Africa on issues related to climate change and debt relief. Kenya is also an important security partner in East Africa and has pleased Washington by pledging to send Kenya police to Haiti. The only phone call President Biden made to a leader in sub-Saharan Africa last year was to Mr. Ruto about Nairobi's promise to lead a multinational force to the troubled country. Analysts suspect the state visit is partly meant to compensate for the fact that Mr. Biden has failed to keep his own promise to visit Africa. He made the pledge at a grand summit of African leaders in Washington 2 years ago, in which he assured his guests he was all in for the continent. But since then, he has been distracted by crises elsewhere, such as the wars in Ukraine and Gaza. That is the size of top accolade African news update. You can follow us on our social media platforms as displayed on your screen. Happy Thursday.